Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to what is Fabrizio coloring? That's a thing, right? I don't really have a choice, I have to color. Yeah, so I'm working on issue 4 of Horse H. Hoover. So I figured I gotta color, so might as well do this anyway. Let me know if the audio's off. I'm on my Wacom, so I had to redo some stuff, but... Hey Kibo, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. You know, this is going to be hard to actually read comments. Let me do something real quick here. I think that works. Yeah, Kibo, thanks for popping in. I spoke to... I'm blanking on his name, sorry about that. Your contact at the convention in Du Bois, and he hooked me up, and he's not charging, which is amazing. Christian, yep. So I'm really hoping to get issue 4 done and printed and out the door. At minimum, I'll have to get issues 1 through 3 reprinted because I'm pretty much out of those, but I'll have something. Hopefully I'll have issue 4 though. If not, I'll have like a proof or something. So anyway, I'm going to be coloring, which I think I might have done this one other time. And my reasoning for it is rather simple. It's because my coloring process is... It's not really special. It's pretty simple. I mean, if anybody's seen any of my work, I use a very limited palette. So me coloring seems kind of boring. But like I said, I have to do it anyway, so I figured why not? So I have a couple of pages that I'm going to be working on. I don't think there's any spoilers, but just a heads up on that. So if I can get somebody to flat the pages, I do that because I despise flatting. It makes me want to do things. So if I can get a flatter, I do it. If not, you know, I'll flat the pages, but it's kind of a nightmare, and I really hate it. But this particular page, I'm coloring from start to finish. I didn't really want to send this to a flatter because there's a lot of implied stuff as far as like separations of foreground, middle ground, background, and I just don't think that they would get that. Like, I don't want every single book colored. That would be ludicrous. Colored something different. So anyway, all of that preamble to say this is still me flatting. So these colors are just temporary colors. These will definitely not be the final colors in the back. But whenever I'm doing in 3D, it's called the Clown Pass. Basically, it's just a way to make separations very obvious, and when the time comes to actually color, I want them to be pretty different than this. Because these colors are random colors. They're not part of my official palette, and I want them to be so different that I don't forget or confuse my limited palette with just my random palette. Hopefully that makes the tiniest bit of sense. Alright, so if you're familiar with the books, this is the book Bug, and he is walking through his house of books, his lair, which in retrospect was the most painful thing I ever came up with, is books on top of books with books. So I'm still paying for that one actually, with issue 4. So we do see the book bug for a bit of it. The other thing too is I'm using Affinity Photo. So I am a long time Photoshop user. I don't know, 25 years. Some ludicrous amount of time I've been using Photoshop. And whenever I was doing a lot of 3D modeling and composites and rendering and stuff like that, Photoshop, it was almost impossible to part with. But I don't really do that much anymore. I'm just doing comic book work when it comes to like a photo editing software. So Affinity Photo for comics is completely fine. No problem at all. I haven't missed Photoshop yet. Same with Affinity Designer for lettering and Affinity Publisher for layouts, for page layouts. Also, something you'll notice is I get pretty messy with stuff. I'm uninterested in really tight colors. It's just never something that I've really liked with my work. For other people, for sure, but for me, I'm a little sloppy. I think it's because I'm doing brush work, so I'm zoomed in. I don't know what 500-600% of what this will actually look like, and you can see, with a brush, it's all over the place. So I just feel like being a little looser with selections and colors just is kind of appropriate. Situation popped up. Sorry, oh, no problem. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate it. So I'm using Affinity Photo. So far, love it. No problems at all. And what I did is I set up swatches for all the characters, past, present, and future. That way I don't have to pull up an old page and sample a color. I have the characters, I have all of their colors already in here. And then I have my official palette, which is, these are all of the colors that I use, and that's it. So I don't know how many this is, 70 or 80. So there's no color in the book that is outside that palette right here. So it's a pretty streamlined process. I don't know if I enjoy it. Coloring isn't my thing. I think this is the last time I'm ever going to color digitally. I think after this, I've talked about doing watercolor, and I am almost 100% certain I'm going to be doing watercolor, and that's it. I have no real desire to do coloring digitally anymore. It was something that it kind of fit the bill, and it worked for the book, and it just worked for this subject and the style and all that kind of stuff. But I'm on the computer all day long, and when I get home, my tolerance for being on the computer more is just dwindles to nothing. So any coloring I do in the future is gonna be watercolor probably, or maybe acrylic or oil or something else. But it is not gonna be digital, outside of issue 5, of course. I work crawling through ducks, but I thought, oh wow, that sounds a lot harder than this. Thanks for popping in. Psychotronics Corkin, hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Alright, so right now I'm really just flatting, honestly. I'll probably switch to another page that already has flats, and I'll actually be coloring final colors for that, but I want to get this a little further along. And again, these colors are just random at this point. But they are on purpose pretty different than the final colors. I don't want to forget, you know what, that's the ground. So I don't want to forget what parts to color and what not. Oop. The thing is, as far as like similarity to Photoshop, it's pretty similar, but the one thing I found is it's extraordinarily fast compared to Photoshop. And that was the final nail in the head. Nail in the head? Nail on the head? For me. I have an M2 laptop and Photoshop crawled. It was insane to me. But all the Affinity products, absolutely, they're really fast on my computer. And no, I'm not being paid by Affinity. Though, of course, I would take it if they were so kind. Anyway. And since I'm not a big fan of flatting, I really do jump around a lot, so. Yeah, when you get real close to the to the line work, it looks so bad. It looks it looks painful. So you just have to tell yourself that keep telling yourself that this is not meant to be seen at this scale. So very much like the penciling and the inking, coloring also at a particular distance will simplify. And I try to take that to heart. You know, if, if I have Horace, who is, I don't think I have a sample in one of the pages I'm doing now, but if I had Horace really small, like barely visible, I wouldn't go in and color each, like I wouldn't color the helmet apart from the pants, apart from the gloves. I would probably just make him entirely blue. That just makes the most sense. So as things get simplified, I mean, same goes for coloring. As far as status of issue 4, Psychotronic Squirt Gun, I can understand not wanting to be on a computer longer than you need to be. Yeah, I hate to be kind of complainy about that, but I mean, I'm a programmer and I used to do a lot of 3D modeling. I was always on a computer. I mean, and at a certain point you just, I don't know. It's the whole screen thing. It kind of gets to you. And the other thing too is I'm trying to do something a little different with colors, for sure. And by different, I mean what they used to do. And the kind of colors I like, to be honest. Man, my Wacom is not. Anyway, so I wanted to do something different. And now that I did these these issues all using that limited color palette, I feel like, okay, what am I going to do next that's different, that will sort of set the book, my next book or books, apart from everything else. So I think it kind of gives me another reason to do that. The thing about coloring for me was it took a long time to really figure out a way that I was happy with the way the coloring looked. So this is, I mean, we can go back to, I don't know, 2018, 2019, and I really started playing around with colors. First it was a limited palette, then it was different limited palettes, then it was, all sorts of options. But I wasn't ultimately happy until I started to throw textures on it. So this is like, again, 2019. You know what, I'll show you, actually. So if we look at, I think I have a finished page here somewhere. Here we go, here's a finished page. So this is what the book will look like eventually. And if I kind of pull things back, obviously here's the inks. It's pretty simple. These are standard colors for Horus. I only do one highlight color. I don't do airbrushing. I just do sort of friskets, is what they would call it in airbrushing. I cut out a shape and I fill it. And I only do one. So the gloves have one highlight. The pouches have one highlight. Horus has one highlight. I don't even have shadow. So that's one way I keep it simple. Like here we go. We have the book bug. We just have some highlight on this, on the right side, and then I will. Now, if I print this, it'll actually be a little too saturated, because just the way displays versus printing works. This will be a little too saturated and too dark. So I put an overlay. So the overlay is, I think this is a watercolor I did along with some paper texture or something like that. And as soon as I did that, to me, I'm like, okay, my eyes relaxed a little bit, because this is too digital looking for me. There's just something about it. So this was sort of like step one, and then pulling back the saturation and upping the light is like the next step. So to me, this really does look like what I want to achieve. I think it looks very sort of old school, but it with a slight variation, I think. So that's the goal. But as I was showing where I'm at now, got a long ways to go. Thank you, Psychotronic Squirt Gun. Alrighty, so yeah, watching somebody flat is not a great thing, but like I said, I have to do it, so I figured, why not? So purple's sort of the interior of this book, so I have to draw around it. Again, pretty loose. There's a lot of lost edges with my brushwork, which, I mean, that works. It means there's no right or wrong answer for a lot of this, because some of the shapes are just missing an edge. So I can really put whatever I want. So now I need to there are people that are much better at flatting than me. Like I said, like there are people that flat all day long, and they get sort of a way to do it. And I understand the logic behind it. You start from the back and you kind of move up, and you can do it a lot faster. But sometimes it just feels like a coloring book, basically. So we go into the book bug here, and unfortunately these aren't they're not like named, but I know them well enough right now that I know the colors. The ability to name those colors and have like a label would be great. So I saw that Del Toro's Frankenstein got a 12-minute or something standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival. Out of all the movies in the past couple of years, Del Toro's Frankenstein is probably the one I am most interested in seeing. Probably one of my favorite books. Never an adaptation I've ever really liked. And I'm a huge Del Toro fan for the most part. I think he's had some misses, but, you know, who am I to complain about that? But it looks great. I was not a fan of Nosferatu last year, so I'm hoping... I thought that was too... I mean, I'll use the word dull. It felt very one-note, monotonous. It was monochrome. There's just a lot of issues I had with it. But from what I can tell, this Frankenstein is... It looks like it's a spectacle. Now, should Frankenstein be a spectacle? I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, it's Victorian literature. If you read Frankenstein, it is flowery, purple prose. It's I have quite a bit of confidence that Del Toro will do good. Human Being, hey, how's it going? Have you seen the 2015 one? I have not. 2015. I'll have to look into that. I mean, I was unaware. Admittedly, I think it's a pretty hard book to adapt. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that like are impossible to please as far as like book versus movie adaptation, but that's not me. I can enjoy movies that aren't direct adaptations, but I at least want like the attempt to have the spirit of the movie. And Frankenstein, at least the adaptations I've ever seen, really none of them are even trying to maintain the spirit of the book. It's like they start from lumbering Frankenstein and they try to throw in some stuff from the book. And this even goes for like, I mean, it's been a long time since I saw the Kenneth Branagh version, but I feel like even that one was a little too monstery. Been watching the old Goth series, Dark Shadows. Man, so I love the Tim Burton Dark Shadows movie. I know that a lot of people hated it, but I thought it was a really fun movie. So I've always thought about going back and watching the TV show. I never saw it. Honestly, I never knew about it until the movie came out. Okay, you don't need to actually do yourself a favor and don't. I will look it up though, because I definitely missed it. Alright, so I'm going to jump to another page because this flatting is getting on my nerves a little bit. I have a page that's pretty close to being done. Or it's flatted with some local color. This one here. So this... Yeah, so Horace's colors are looking good. The book bug, mostly good. The loquat is not colored. But he's sort of in the background here. I will probably pick a non-local color. And local color just means the color of an object. Like green for grass, blue for sky, you know, something like that. I actually use quite a bit of local color. I don't use lighting in a sort of abstract or not abstract, but a rendering kind of way. So for example, let's say that, okay, so in the book, say there's lights in there. He has candles or a fire burning. Most people, I would say everybody, pretty much would put like orange on his arm, and maybe there like be orange here. I only do that on rare occasions. It's very often, or it's very seldom that I would do that. I think it's just, again, it's the style of the book and everything. It kind of goes with what I'm trying to do. All right, so flats look good here. Look good there, and I can tweak things as I think I... What do you think about the 1931 version and the Gene Wilder parody? I mean, Young Frankenstein's hilarious. I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time. Oh, man, the 1931. If it's the one I'm thinking of. Some of those I've only ever seen once a long time ago. 1931. But yeah, the Gene Wilder one's fun. What is going on with this? There we go. Get a little more background to do here. It's always a safe bet if you want to push something in the background, just do like light purples, blues. It's just one of those standard things. You'll notice it in a lot of comic books back in the day, again. There we go. I'm probably a little more forgiving with all of like the Dracula, Nosferatu remakes. Because I think any version of vampires is fun. Even the really dumb versions, I still enjoy those. Frankenstein, it's like, I don't know. Unless it's purposely being funny. All right. So rocks. So this underground area in issue 3 was very green and yellow. So I'm trying to keep the background yellow, and then for the ground. Whoa, what's going on? Oh, I see. Then for the upper portion, we can go two ways. We can either do something that's contrast to Horus to make him pop, which would be obviously orange and blue. But that's too much. Maybe like a light orange. Nope. So I'm gonna go with, this is the least satisfying. I'm gonna go with like a light blue, actually. I think that works. And then what I'll do is, once I have a panel like this, okay, so these are the base colors I definitely want. And I'm gonna do highlights now. So again, I only use one highlight. So for Horus, we have the light coming from the right. So I'll sort of quickly, and the quicker the better. You can see how loose I'm doing this. Doesn't have to be everywhere, but just to show there's light coming from the right, and then I have a highlight. That's not right. Come on. There we go. So when you zoom out, it's just enough detail that goes along with the artwork. But I don't spend a ton of time on it. I guess I should say that I spend hours and hours and hours, but I don't. Now, I could put a highlight on his glove. I feel like that's a little overkill, but sometimes when you're done with something, you'll look back on it and be like, yeah, I'm glad I took the time to add that. So I put highlights on the top of his helmet. We'll do highlights for the wheels. Again, this is so small, and we'll do a little bit of highlights for the pouch. And again, we could go into the background and add highlights there as well. I'll try it out. I kind of just carve in between all of the lines. And then for this, no, it's got to be light. That might work. It might work. If a modern sort of colorist saw me doing this, they would be horrified. All right, so once I think I have something that looks pretty good, I'll go into layers and then I'll turn back. What's going on? Yeah, so for light colors, my overlay doesn't do much. So you see, like for blues, you can see it a lot. For reds, for sure. For oranges, it doesn't do much. So for any light colors, it doesn't do a ton. But that's fine. So, and then a little bit of that light and saturation. I think that works. He kind of sticks out from the background. So I'll turn it back off. Because the last thing I want to do is sample a color from that version. All right, so let's go to the book bug. First things first. So light is coming from the right. That looks kind of funny. It looks funny right now, so I got to do a little more. I got to be a little more judicious on how I do that. Does look a little ludicrous, huh? All right, let's get rid of that. So, I mean, you definitely want to do the nose and the chin, because those are both sticking out pretty bad. And obviously the forehead, for sure. Maybe not the whole forehead, but cheeks. It looks like he's like a geisha or something. But I'm just going to leave that in there temporarily, because I might have to get out like his shadow color, which I don't know if I have it on this computer. All right. So for him, I don't do a highlight, but I do a shadow on these pages. So I just got to figure out where the light's coming from and throw this blue shadow, because the blue shadow really, a lot of this is pretty stylized, but it definitely kind of gives him a little bit of dimensionality. I think he does have like hair highlights. That's not right. Same with the books. Again, with such a small character, sometimes it seems like it's overkill, but whatever. I'm gonna go with like an orange. An orange for the highlight on the books, and then maybe something like that. So yeah, this is going to be the size. And this is why you just really get into trouble. I'm zooming in, 400%. This is the size. Now, admittedly, those colors really help carve out that character almost as much as the inks. So another question would be the background in panel 2. So the background in panel 2 is, I haven't actually put a final color there. Now, these are the questions you're constantly faced with. Do I, since this is his house, do I cut out the house and separate it from the background? Or do I allow it to sort of sit in the background? Now this is one of those, I always pronounce Glenn, the famous colorist, the Dex, Glenn Weenus? Not Glenn Weenus, Glennis? Somebody help me out. Forget her name. Yang, where are you? You know that name. Anyway, she did a lot of the coloring, and it was brilliant stuff because it really did, like, the separations were so good. It was easily to read. Yeah, do I go with that? Now, if I do that, obviously his shadow color disappears, but I could just take the shadow color and go darker with that. So let's see here, because I have a darker blue like that. You know, I kind of like that. It puts a separation between Horus, the book bug. So I'm going to stick with that. I can always go back and change it, but for now. Okay, so we have another Horus panel. Pick out the palette. Yeah, these like, this is pretty mechanical when we get to this stage for a lot of it. Horus his palette's set. Just a reminder, I'm zoomed in like 700%. My brush work is so nice compared to that. Alright, so did some highlight on the helmet. Highlight on the wheels, if I can see them. Let's see. His collar should actually be darker on the inside. Alright, so this is a good scenario where you would really want a highlight on the top of the glove. Hey Kibo, thanks for coming back. I don't think you missed anything of importance. I'm just kidding. There's been so much genius work in the past couple of minutes. So I don't really have a saved shadow color for his gloves. I've used shadow colors, but they've sort of been on the fly. Again, you should always essentially go blue if you can, but he's blue, so maybe purple's the best we get. Maybe I stay orange. How about we just do inside the hand? That's a bad idea. Okay, so we'll do his jacket. We'll pick out some Some parts on the front. They should make sense. If they don't make sense, somebody usually emails me. No, they don't. But hey, if you're out there, feel free to email me. I will gladly take tips. Let me know where I went wrong. And then, we got orange for these guys. So I'm not saying that I don't deviate from these set highlight colors, but I don't know. It just makes it so easy to read for this particular book. That's my caveat now, so I'm going to stop saying it. But I think if you bathed Horse in orange light and then blue light, then yellow light, he wouldn't be the same character. I think whenever I see characters like, I don't know, the Flash or somebody, and they're bathed in these other lights, it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't have the same impact as red and yellow. One of the first times I remember, disliking that was, darn it, Captain America, the Brubaker run, Winter Soldier, and I'm thinking about the coloring in that, and it's really, I don't want to use the word washed out. It's very monochromatic most of the time. I'd have to pull it out. It's been forever, but I remember thinking, man, that's Cap. He should be red and blue, and it should be really stark, and it really wasn't, except for certain times. So am I keeping the yellow for Horus? So here's some theory that somebody smarter than me would say. All right, so green is, or this light green, bluish color, is sort of neutral, I would say. It doesn't convey any emotion. Purple, whatever. And you know what, I have to... Anyway, so we get back to Horus, and now he's pointing, he's kind of yelling, and he's angry. Should it stay this color green? Probably not. Is yellow a good enough change to really drive that home? I mean, you can essentially... The beauty of digital, which I complained about already, is just try it out. And just try out some other colors. So, anger stereotypically would be red. That's never going to happen for Horus because he has a big red helmet. It could be like a dark, something like this. Maybe. It's still the helmet and everything gets washed. It's red and blue, so we have far less options. We can't go green. Maybe. I think that's too stark. Let me look at some other yellows. Orange. Let's see what that looks like with the overlay. I'm going to go with this yellow. Could be temporary, might not be. We'll see. So, I don't know if anybody saw, I posted issue 4 cover on Twitter. And as of right now, it looks like I should be able to crowdfund in October sometime. I'm not sure just when in October, but as soon as possible. I've got all these pages to color, and I have some lettering to finish up. Quite a bit of lettering to finish up, actually. I don't want to make it sound like I'm further along than I am, but the crowdfunder is basically going to happen whenever the book is virtually done. Maybe not 100%, but for all intents and purposes. Okay, so now we have color sort of hitting his back. I'm sorry, highlights hitting his back. In this scenario, I'm going to go with a different color. I'm not going to use the sort of stock. He is underground technically, even though there's a lot of sort of ambient light. That's too purple. No, that doesn't work. So whenever I put this purple here, there's two reasons it doesn't work. One is the color doesn't work, but also the value doesn't work. The value of that purple is too close to the value of the blue. And all that means is if you took this down to a grayscale, between 1 and 10, they'd both be like a 4. What you want is it's light, so it has to be lighter. If this selects like that. Now that's too light. That works right there, actually. Which I think is almost the exact colors as purple, which is fine. I'm going to change that anyway. Again, some of these colors aren't final, so I can go in. Okay. So again, this place is more of like yellow and green. I actually have the Caves of Chaos. These are the colors of the caves. So I don't think I want to do something like that. It's got to be a little more muted. I'm going to go with that brown because I'm going to change him to his color. He is going to be local color. So he's actually like this orange. Now as far as this blue, so what I'll do is I think I'm gonna do highlights on all these characters first and then pick that background color. Instead of trying to do everything at the same time, I know I can finish Horus. I know I can finish the Book Bug and the Loquat with their correct proper colors. Then once all of that's set, it'll be a lot easier to pick the background because I'll have something to bounce off of, basically. It's like if you're painting, you always want to paint on a toned canvas. You really don't want to start on a white canvas. So for my Kickstarter, which I don't think I mentioned, I am going to be crowdfunding. It's going to be on Kickstarter. I kind of went back and forth on Fund My Comic or Indiegogo or whatever. And I'm going to do Kickstarter. Why, do you ask? It's a good question. I mean, mainly, that's weird. There we go. Mainly for exposure. I like Fund My Comic. I have no problems with it at all. But I think people finding the book that have never heard of the book is actually more important. And most of the people on Fund My Comic appear to be people that already know about the indie comic scene, and they're just, that's their checkout. So the thing is, I'm a programmer. If I really wanted to, I could build whatever I wanted. I don't want to. So if that's all it is, and it's not about exposure, then I couldn't see any value in Fund My Comic over a Kickstarter or something like that. I don't know if that makes anybody upset or not. But what are you gonna do? Man, I just realized my face is so close to the damn screen. God damn. Alrighty. Okay, so Horus is pretty much done. Sometimes I put like a strip to kind of amp up the reflection to show that it's metal. But it's rare that I do that. Sometimes I do that. Okay. So he's done. We'll work on the book bug. Again, he's tiny, so I'm really just going to utilize that shadow, that blue, just to try to give him some 3D. The thing with this particular blue is it's really good. It looks like reflected light. Instead of just a shadow, it looks like that blue is being reflected because the value is so light, which is why I like it so much. Now the way his arms are crossed sometimes can be confusing, so I want to make sure I want to help it as much as I can. You know what? I started a new show. I don't know if anybody has seen this. It's called 30 Coins. It's on HBO. It's Spanish. It's set in Spain. And it is, so far, one episode in, and it's pretty fantastic. It's horror, but it's really well done. It's got a cool style to it. I think because it's Spanish, that it kind of kept me on my toes. I wasn't sure what to expect. A lot of times I'm unfortunately pretty good about figuring out what's going to happen next. So that was a pleasant surprise. Yeah, it's set in a Spanish town. And I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but it's called 30 Coins based off of, like, Judas, right? So there are coins, and we don't know the specifics yet, but, you know, I'm sure it's going to be based on either tracking these coins down or finding them or something. So far, really good. There was a pretty terrifying monster in that first episode, which, like I said, was a pleasant surprise. Alright, so for this, I definitely am going to do highlights. This'll definitely work in my favor when you zoom out. except we don't want that. Did I put it on the wrong layer? Oh, this is one of those things. I should have locked my my flat layer, but whatever. Can't do anything about it now. That is unfortunate. I try not to do a lot of layers, but one is essentially flats and highlights. But whenever I mess that up, going back is fine. It's not hard, but sometimes, depending on your selection, it'll be like 1 pixel like edge, which is unfortunate. All right, I'm like 8,000% zoomed in there, so I'm just gonna. That's the size. Yeah, this is digital. Like you zoom in and it's not for the better. Oh, I'm gonna take a break here for a minute. Let's see. Kibo, it is an interesting situation these days with Backer, Kit, Zoop, FMC, and all others vying for a piece of becoming the preeminent comic crowdfunding place. But everyone is already established on Kickstarter. Yeah. It's interesting for sure. My first experience with crowdfunding was with my previous publisher, who I have nothing good to say about. But anyway, I wasn't a fan from the beginning. I didn't want to do crowdfunding, especially with a publisher. Like, hey, your book's getting published, and now I have to crowdfund it. It seemed like that defeated the purpose of having a publisher. You know, I can crowdfund things on my own. Why would I spend all that time get it done and then just having a publisher crowdfund at that point? But anyway, that was my first experience, and they all funded barely. And this is with a company that had been around for a while, had a okay name in the comic industry. Okay, barely okay. It was on the downswing, we'll put it that way. So after that whole situation, it just, every time at every quarter, whenever the crowdfunding came up for this, it did worse and worse. It became less and less fun. It didn't seem like doing interviews and going on other shows did a bunch. So it was really hard to sort of quantify what you're doing in regards to marketing. And you were just kind of left adrift. So again, I can do that on my own. I can feel listless and totally clueless on my own. I don't need to be involved with somebody else or a different company just to be, swimming on my own. So I went back and forth. Issue 3, I just went right to my store. It got pulled after I left. They pulled it from the last campaign in a hurry, in a fit of annoyance. They cried about it. He cried about it. He pulled the issue. So I'm like, hey, that's fine. I'll just put it on my store. I didn't want to do a crowdfunding because I wanted to get it in people's hands as quick as possible. So, the success of that, I don't know. I don't know if it was because of the falling out with the publisher or time of year or just disinterest in the book, but just throwing stuff up on a store doesn't seem to do a lot of good. So the crowdfunding really becomes just marketing, and that's it for me, because I'll go ahead and I'll pay to get the books printed, because there's not that many books. If it was 1,000 books or something, that's one thing, but I'm only going to sell a couple hundred or something. So crowdfunding is about marketing, and when you drill down to that, then I think it's inescapable that Kickstarter has the biggest market, more likely to get new readers who don't know about you, don't know indie comics from Kickstarter. So that's my take why I'm doing Kickstarter. But we'll see. Last issue 3 went straight to my store. I know how many I sold. Issue 4, I'm going to be crowdfunding on Kickstarter. I'll be able to see how many I sell, how much I can raise via that. And then issue 5, we'll see. But I don't think you can make this like market-wide adjudication of this is the best platform and this always does better and this always does worse. And different books done by different people with different crowds at different times do differently. It's like any other product. So you can't really pin yourself to some other person on Twitter that said, oh, I raised 10 grand and I did X, Y, and Z. Totally irrelevant if you'll get anywhere near that. I think most people, if you've been doing this for a while, like I have, you have a sense of how much you'll sell and who's going to buy them and what it takes. And Horace H. Hoover is a niche of a niche of a niche. So, which is fine. Indie comics is a niche. Occult detective is a niche. Occult detective with a vacuum cleaner like thing on his head. Niche. So, knowing that, my expectations are adjusted for that. All of that to say Kickstarter. And that was my little break, my rant break. Alrighty. Alright, so let's do the highlights for the Loquat. His full name is Loquatian. Let's see here. His eye color is, we'll say, important. That's a clue. That's an Easter egg. It's hidden. I would say if you're interested in the story, pay attention to that. All right, so again, this is one of those characters where the local color is already set, so I just kind of go with that. I do have a shadow color for the Loquat, though. Being an orange creature, with a yellow highlight, it really needs a darker color to sort of like weight it down. And basically for this, any place that you see hatching, like on the side of the head, is basically where the shadow will go. So it's easy. Like once you have the inking and your light source, you don't need to think too much about the coloring. This kind of coloring, we'll say. Yeah, so it's this light blue again against the yellow. I'll leave the top of the ear kind of to pop that highlight. Always do under the eyes. That's the easiest way to like push back the plane on the eye. Alrighty, so now that we have, you know what we should do is we need to do like a highlight on this middle ground here. So I'm gonna do pretty much the same thing I did in other locations. I kind of just I do selections in between all of the inks. I don't want it to be too busy and too confusing, so I'll probably just do it. Well, we'll see. I can always scale it back. And we have the Case of Chaos, so that is the local color, and then this green is the highlight. So those shapes were a little too messy, so now I just go in and I gotta make them match the terrain a bit better, because if not, they just don't look like they actually fit. See, am I reading anything? I just finished this history book, which I know there is no overlap between comics and history, so it's probably not worth talking about it, but basically, it's given me a completely new understanding of the Dark Ages. First of all, the misnomer of the Dark Ages is ludicrous. It always bothered me that, you know, what we consider the Dark Ages. I'm like, oh, okay. And then you see the most amazing Gothic cathedral or something, piece of artwork from that time, and you're like, why was it dark again? And it's really just like this dismissal of 1,000 years. And there's always reasons, and there are always certain people that are pushing that, but it's pretty fascinating. And the cool thing is, you know, if you do comics, if you read comics, if you write, whatever you do, everything that you read is essentially fodder or can be content for a new comic. And it's almost impossible to read something, learn about a whole period of time, interesting facts that you've never heard before, which means most people haven't heard of it. And then it's almost like you can't help but come up with a new story. So if you're stuck, if you can't think of something, don't turn to AI, please, whatever you do. But even so, I would say pick up a history book, and pick up a history book of a time period you know nothing about. And I guarantee you'll find something that'll spark a little bit of creativity. Okay, so we have all three of those set. Now we want to pick this blue. All right, let's look at the page. So, because we have 4 panels at this point. We don't want to do a few things. We don't want to reuse too many colors, like in the background, because it'll blur in your brain. You also don't want to be you don't have too much contrast. So looking at these first 3 panels, based on those 3 panels, you know, where do we want to go with this blue? I mean, it doesn't have to be blue. It probably should be blue based on all the yellows, oranges, and greens here. So it's probably just going to be, and again, we're limited, very limited. I think we're just going to go a shade darker than this panel up here. What do you think? Can I get a yarp in the comments? 45 people. Yarp, narp. Anyone? Hot Fuzz, great movie. That movie permanently changed my vocabulary. My wife and me never, ever say the word yes anymore. We just say yarp. Yeah, yarp is from Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz, such a great movie. See, Kibo gets it. Alrighty, next panel. So this doesn't bode well. Like, how long does it take to color a panel or a page? You know, at least a couple hours. Yep. Yeah, I know if I use the word yarp and people know what I'm talking about, then I know I'm in good company. All right, so this should be a pretty easy panel. Light's coming from the left, so we're gonna hit the top of the ear. Gotta make sure I'm, yep, on the right. So we're gonna hit the top of the ear, side of the nose for sure. Just start with the things that you know would be hit with the light from the left, right? It's going to be right on the left. Meanwhile, like cutting the inside of every plane at minimum, or every chunk. Side of the nose, the whole side here. Maybe this, maybe the start of that. Depending on where the light's at. And just like that, he's got a face, right? So yeah, I mean, you've seen me do this a few times now. Once I get that basic, like, pattern, then I just go in and kind of finesse it a little bit, you know, inside shapes. Because if I was going to fool around with colors for the next 5 minutes, then, you know, why do that? Just get the color down if it looks like this is the way to go, and kind of finish it up by doing this. Oh, so this Saturday I'm going to be on Crenshaw's channel. I don't have it with me. I'll post it. I mean, I'll post it on Twitter. I'll probably mention it here again. But I'm on his channel, and which I thought was a cool idea. It's called Content. He wanted me to come up with 5 movies that are sort of important to me. Not necessarily my favorite movies, but 5 movies, maybe they were, you know, at a certain time, they reminded me of something, they have some significance outside of just, you know, being a well-crafted movie. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Okay, so his face is fine for me. Now, since this is a big shot of him, you know, I think I could, or maybe should, we'll see, actually put shadow on his face. So let's give it a whirl. So definitely, you know, like I said, underneath the eyes, underneath the nose, underneath the lips, like any and every person on the planet can do that without thinking twice about it. Yeah, because it's so big, this particular image, you know, it does seem like it warrants a little more shading. So that's a kicker. Like you would see light here, but I want like that. This is a sort of like artistic thing, right? Underneath the eye. Like it wouldn't be that dark if light's coming from that side, but it looks kind of cool. So do I keep it? Now I could go really extreme, right, and just do this whole side of his face. Maybe catch that. Maybe chunk of the ear. Underneath the eye. Yeah, whenever you're playing around with, should I do this, shouldn't I do it, go bold, and then that usually lets you know if you're headed in the right direction. This is a little too empty. So this could actually be light. Oops. I'm probably really overly fiddling with this right now, but let's see. I mean, I kind of like the shadow, so I'm going to go with it. Like I said, if it wasn't this big, I don't think I would, but in this scenario, I'm going for it. I forget what his eye color is. It's gotta be brown, right? So we need some highlights on the book. I've just been doing kind of yellow or orange highlights, which is just taking whatever the local color is and bumping it up a bit. Let's see if we can find something a little different, a little more extreme. Actually, I kind of like that. That's a really light pink skin, almost a skin color. Which works because technically these are probably leather, right? I mean, not human skin, but they're leather, so they have, you know, they might have that feel. I don't think that's the right color of his threads. He has all these pages wrapped around him along with the books, but he has to sew them together. So he's sort of, I kind of envisioned him like chewing the paper and kind of getting a pulp and drying it and turning it into thread somehow. I don't know. Is that a thing? I say yeah, sure, right? That can be a thing. It's my comic, it can be a thing. Alrighty. So we'll do the background of the panel, which we don't want that lime green. That looks pretty wretched. And this will probably be it. So I didn't even finish a page. Well, I did some flatting on the first, and then I got done to, 5 panels on this. All right. So let's take this background and see. See what color looks good. All right, so taking a look at the other panels, kind of figuring out what will go along with it. Now we could go back to the purple because that would be consistent with, you know, the previous color. That's not the exact. I'm not really a fan of that. I don't think that's necessary. Not necessary. Just because it was in another panel, it doesn't really. This is not bad. We want a light color. I mean, we got the green and the red. You have light blue green with the red. It kind of makes him pop a little bit. Let's try yellow. Nope, that's too similar to his clothing, his pages. I'm not averse to this. Let's take a look with everything else. This shift overlay. We might be getting into too much like varied colors between these, but I'm okay with it right now. Background colors are just the easiest thing to do. You know what, I'm going to do one thing before I call it today. So the mask, or the face shield part of Horace H. Hoover, I started doing that digitally a while ago. Sometimes, not always digitally, but if I don't like it, I have a tendency to just do it digitally because it looks very clean. And I'll take clean over I'll take clean and consistent over, come on, like this here. Does it read that it's reflective? Kind of, but it's too much white. So I think it's too much white, so I think it kind of ruins. There we go. Okay, so what I do is I go solid black, and then I do it digitally. So just to make it like really clean. You like something like that. This looks much more similar to every other panel of Horace H. Hoover. And these are definitely things that I go in and I play with a lot. Depending on, I don't know, the scene and what's going on, and, you know. So I like that. To me, that really reads as reflective. Now, here's the kicker. It reads as reflective because, and this is really from 3D where you learn this, it's because those are lights being reflected. Like those would be over, like big soft lights, whatever they're called, overhead lights, big panels of lights. Or like if you're in a house and you have the windows open, you would see like panels come through as reflections. So it's not accurate in the least. It's the exact opposite of accurate. But it reads correctly. You know, if you take that versus this, that might be reflective. It's kind of reflective, but there's a lot of white. Most black glass doesn't have that much white when it's reflected. But if you do that, it totally works. Alrighty. So I think that's it. Any other questions, comments? Any hate mail? Um, yeah, I don't think I have too much to talk about. Again, I'm going to be Captain Goodnight. Horse's helmet seems a bit shorter than in earlier issues. Is that evolving drawing style, or is there a plot reason? It's evolved. I, in retrospect, made his helmet more accurate, but less cool looking. And as time went on, I said I have to pull it down a little bit, practically as well. So, for example, his helmet originally would be up to here. Like he wasn't fitting in panels. Every time I would like do thumbnails or sketches, his head was so tall that he wouldn't fit where I need him to fit. So I'm like, all right, I need to shrink it down a little bit, which is fine. I think it just looks more helmety and less vacuum cleaner. Like the vacuum cleaner is definitely, you know, I think I measured the height for like the vacuum cleaner would have been from the top of his actual head to his waist. That's how big a real vacuum cleaner would be, or something like that. I can't remember what it was. So I tried to stick to that, but practically speaking, it just didn't work. Also, it looks cooler a little smaller. Like if you look at my resin model that I did versus the first, well, maybe I'll even bring it up. Give me a second here. Yeah, if you look at, oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, so if you look at the original resin model, so this was, I don't know, 2016, 2017, whenever I did this. That is a fairly accurate representation of a vacuum cleaner on somebody's head, which I still think looks really, really cool. But like I said, practically speaking, it when it came to the comic book, it really didn't work as well. Because if you look at my new resin model, it's still big, but it's not as big. And it just made it a little more, again, the word realistic doesn't apply, but a little more in proportion of what we might expect. Sometimes being accurate just doesn't mean as cool. You know, just kind of like I showed for the reflection. Accurate really doesn't do anything for anybody. It's cool looking. So I just go with what I think is the coolest looking version of it. Kibo, hate mail. I got my second piece of couple. What? You got hate mail? I've never been blocked on Twitter, and it occurred to me, I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Like, I feel like I should garner more hate than I do. I really need to, like, gin up the Twitter talk. I could go for some hate mail. Yeah, so keep an eye out. I will be coloring probably a couple times this week. If that wasn't enough coloring for you in one night. Kickstarter sometime in October. I'll probably do, I don't know. I know I probably want at least 2 or 3 weeks for like sign-ups and notifications and all that stuff. But again, it's I want to get the book in people's hands as quick as possible. So to me, it's like as soon as a book's done, I want to get it out, like pushing the date just to get people to sign up. And just, it's difficult for me because when you've been working on something for a year, like you literally just want to print it and get it in people's hands. However that may be, whether it's those free little libraries you find in front of big buildings or, you know, throwing them from a helicopter, whatever the case may be. Kibo. Oh yeah, last year in July I got my first one. Grade A, coward shite. First name, last name from a security email and everything. That's pretty crazy. Huh. Well, I'll keep an eye out for my hate mail. Alright. Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. Again, I'll be streaming again this week, so look out. And then on Saturday, definitely on Crenshaw's channel, which, sorry, can't think of it. I don't have the YouTube channel memorized, but hope everybody has a good night, and I will talk to you later. Thanks, everyone.